here?
Yeah. Just the dollar amount for the record.
Okay.
Right.
Good evening.
I'd like to call the regular Bonita Springs Fire Control and Rescue Monthly Meeting, District Meeting to order for Monday, September 10th, 2018. This will be a two-part meeting. One is the regular meeting, and the other one will be the tentative millage and tentative budget hearing. Please rise for the invocation and moment of silence. Reverend Chitwood.
I'd like to have a moment of silence for 7 firemen that lost their life this past month. Dear God, we come to you today and we give you thanks for the blessings of this life, but for these, though, that have sacrificed their lives for others, we pray, Lord, that you will bless their families, that you'll watch over them, and give them strength during this time of loss. Lord, we pray for protection for the firemen here in Bonita, that you will watch over them and protect them and their families. Also be with the chief and just help him to heal and recover from his accident and give him the strength he needs. Be with the commissioners, give them wisdom in the decisions they make that impact the lives of others. It's in Christ's name we pray. Amen.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The regular board meeting will now go into recess, and I will call the tentative millage and tentative budget hearing to order. Separate agenda. Commissioner Murphy, if you would read into the record the first 5 items.
Yes, sir. As Secretary Treasurer, item number 1. This hearing is to adopt the tentative millage and budget for the 2018-19 year. Number 2, the tentative budget of $2.3100 per $1,000 will be a 1.6% more than a rollback rate of 2.2744 mils. The reason for this increase in millage amount over rollback is A, increased personnel services and wages, additional employees at the new station and replacement, B, Station 23 construction, and C, replacement of fire and medical equipment. Item number 4, the total ad valorem taxes generated from the millage of 2.3100 will be $25,543,894.70. Net taxes will be $24,796,814.49. Item 5, the tentative general fund budget for 2018-19 will be $37,421,623.23. The tentative impact fee budget for 2018-19 will be $706,588.34. That's it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Do we have any public input on the millage rate or the budget submitted for 2018-2019? Seeing none.
Alex Grant, 11851 East Terry Street, Bonita Springs. One question on the, what would be the public input on the, what do I want to say? The impact fee, that's right, budget. Okay, that's $706,588. Now, will all of that go to payment of the debt for fire station number 4? I'm getting a nod. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so that will reduce at least 1 year for, instead of 2023?
Actually, we're, in this budget, we've lowered the millage rate, and we're also going to pay that note off in full. We're
Oh,
not-
okay.
We're
You're gonna-
pay- we're-
okay.
We're going to become totally debt-free with the district, so
Okay.
any impact fees at that point will be used to offset that and to also to pay back into the general fund of
Okay.
money that we lent.
Okay, you answered my question.
Ron Pure?
Yeah, just a quick question.
Got the mic, it's on the record.
Hi, Ron Pure. Am I looking at the proposed budget that's stacked on the table here? Is this just the current budget? 217-18, or am I looking at 218-19?
219. 2018, 2019.
Where is that indicated here? I'm sorry, I don't see it. I see 17-18.
You've got the
Yeah, this
wrong
isn't,
paper.
this isn't it.
This is,
Oh, I took it off there.
That's the current bill, sir.
Very good, thank you. I'm sorry, would you restate the increase or decrease?
It's written on
in the
that
gross-
agenda that you have in front of you.
Well, just give me the percentage without my
1.6.
searching for it, because I didn't have
One-
this in hand.
1.6.
I'm sorry?
1.6.
1.6%?
1.6 is the increase over rollback.
Okay. How much did revenue grow? Thanks.
This
How much
isn't
did-
question and answer, this is public input.
Okay, well, maybe somebody could restate that when I sit down. I hope they will. Appreciate that. I didn't have a time to glance at this. Thanks.
Any further public input?
I have a question.
Not now. We need a motion to adopt and approve the tentative millage rate of 2.3100.
I so move. I'll second it.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
No.
Okay. We need a motion to adopt the tentative general fund budget of $37,421,623.33 for fiscal year 2018-2019.
So moved.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
No.
Adopt the tentative impact fee budget of $706,588.34 for fiscal year 2018-2019. Need a motion?
So moved.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that concludes that portion of the budget hearing. Commissioner Fitzgerald, you're recognized.
I have just a question. First, you said to the gentleman speaking that we would be debt-free. So the new stations are paid for completely? We have
Yes.
no? Terrific. And I just want to comment on why I did not vote for the budget. I will not approve this 2018-19 budget for the Bonita Springs Fire Control and Rescue District for several reasons. And one is, and I brought this up before, the budget is over 92% personnel cost. And in that budget allocation,
All due respect, this budget is passed and voted on.
Oh.
It's already been approved. I'm calling the regular monthly meeting back to
I
order.
take exception. I'm not allowed to comment on the
I
budget.
understand that, but we've already passed the budget, and we're not going to have a discussion about a motion that's been passed and voted on. I'm calling the regular meeting back to order. Do we have any public comment on agenda items on the regular agenda? I have no cards. Seeing none. There's two agendas there. I need a motion for, to approve the meeting minutes of August 13th, 2018, regular meeting minutes.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I need the approval of the budget workshop minutes for August 23rd, 2018.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, Commissioner's business. going to start with Commissioner Churro.
Excuse me, are we going to do the approval of the financials?
I'm sorry, I missed that one. I thought, my bad. I need an approval, one motion, of the August 2018 and current expenditures and ACH payments, acknowledgement of financial report, and acknowledgement of wire transfers and transfers between
So moved.
accounts. It's my first day.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Now it's Commissioner's business. Commissioner Machuro, would like to start?
Oh, thank you, Chairman. I got an information here from Tagster, and it talks about our district specifically, so I wanted to set the record straight and see what these discrepancies are and see if we can't set the record straight once and for all. This was actually penned by Commissioner Fitzgerald. It says that if you're a chief officer in Lee County, where the 90% becomes 100% and the 500,000 becomes $1 million. Chief, if you can comment on that, is that an accurate statement?
Well, that would depend on what you're using for your set of assumptions, meaning from FRS or Chapter 175, depends on the pension system, and also when and where you were hired. So that rate would be different, where you have, sometimes people have a 3% multiplier, so it depends on how many years you work at. 3% multiplier, what is that, 30 years?
Right.
30-something years, you could potentially reach that amount after 30 years, and then the drop, so it'd be 35 years for a complete description. Now, the numbers would depend on the salary base of whoever you're referring to.
Okay. And I guess I would have to address you, Commissioner. Who specifically then did you mean when you wrote that?
That was a comparison.
I think it's
know, and I'm
important
just trying to
we
find
get
right
the
words
facts
to
here
tell you.
because.
You have a valid question, no problem
Okay.
at all. You see, I specified chief officer. To be a chief officer, I assume when you're retiring, you'd have the 25 years in the job. And if you're a chief officer, and we talk about the Lee County or Benita Springs Fire Department, your multiplier would be 3.87. 3.5?
Our multiplier is
The
3
new
now.
the tiered contract is 3% multiplier. That's the same as FRS.
Is your multiplier? If
You were hired prior to 2010,
I'm
I want to
assuming
say.
you're a chief officer, you were hired before 2011, your multiplier is sufficient to give you 100% pension after you complete 27 years. That's where the numbers come from.
Okay.
And there's another number in there. The other number is the drop amount.
Okay, and that's in the FRS program? What pension system are you using to come up with these numbers?
This Benita Springs Fire Department, so is it, do I have to differentiate between the pension?
I think it would make,
They
would
are
it
the
make a
same,
difference?
if I'm not mistaken, the FRS and the 175 drop program is the same.
I don't know if that to be accurate is.
They are, from what I can understand, they are not exactly the same. They're similar.
Entities, right.
But the police, fire, and all high-risk employees, included elected officials, are able to participate in that. So that would include all high-risk public service employees,
Okay.
including elected officials.
One thing I'd like
The
to
two
add,
pe-
one
two
thing I
pension
would...
systems are the same.
I would just like to interject something about the drop program. There's a total misunderstanding, and when I first got involved in this, I didn't understand it either. The drop, once an employee goes into the drop program, we pay no more money into that pension. That money comes out of pension money that's already there and funded. When anybody that works for us that retires or goes into the drop for 5 years, we stop paying any pension obligations or liabilities. So they actually become a cheaper employee.
Right.
That because we've got the experience, we've got 25 years of experience, and we're not paying the pension costs because all the drop money comes out of the pension program. And I just want to make that clear for the record.
You're 25 years in the fire department, you're eligible to retire. If you were to retire, you would get your pension. We are inducing them to stay 5 more years. That means no more progression in the ranks of promotions, no more movement, and we're keeping the employee, every employee, by the way, without qualifications, and you say we need them, we stop the entry level by keeping the 25-year member, keeping him on. I don't see the benefit in it.
That's a good point. That is a good point, and you were a fire chief. You're talking from experience. You've been there, you've done that, you've got the T-shirt. Let me say this. What do you have invested in an individual with time, money, training, because you wear so many hats here? When you have, I'll use one of the chiefs as an example. With all their knowledge, and they're getting close to retirement time, do you view them as an asset if they stay on during the drop program, or a liability?
Well, I would certainly hope that the board views me as an asset after my 25 years, but yes. I mean, the experience and knowledge from the organizational historic standpoint is valuable in determining where the district is going in the future, and not only that, but where we have been. So the short answer is, a longer tenured employee, you can't replace that experience.
Right, so you're getting their training, their experience, their knowledge, and it's not costing the district money. It's coming, like the chairman pointed out, it's coming out of the pension program, or
Yes,
the drop program.
The chairman is correct with our pension system. When you enter the drop, the district does not pay for the employee's pension. For example, if I go in the drop, the district will not be putting in the percentage of salary for the next 5 years for me, which, would be a significant amount for the pension system, for the district to be paying. And that happens for all employees that have 25 years and go into the drop. I think, for example, we had, at one time, I believe we had 5 or so in the drop. So those are 5 employees of our highest, typically will be our highest paid employees that the district will not be paying pension costs for. And normally they're, higher ranking officers.
Okay.
I want to comment on your question, if I may.
Yes, sir.
You believe, and I believe, there is a value in keeping a senior employee. Not necessarily everyone, but from the 25 to the 30th year. What happens in the 30th year? Then he's no longer valuable because he has to leave. If we didn't have the drop program, this valuable employee could stay. We could have 31 years with him, 32, 35 years. At one time, firefighters used to, or fire chiefs, they used to retire after 35 years and more. After 30 years, now you're out.
But under our current tier, not the old tier, under the current tier, the maximum amount of money you're going to collect from your pension is 75%. So if you stay for 30 years, 25 years, you hit your 75% of pay under the current tier of the contract. If you stay for 30 years, you're still only going to get 75%. So I think what the point is, from the old way we did it to the new way, it's almost counterproductive to stay past 25 years. From where I sit looking at it. Now, having said that, if you love your job and you don't like to be home with your wife that much, then maybe you're going to stay. But just from a practical standpoint, under the new tier of the contracts, you hit your maximum of 75% at 25 years, and that's a minimum required by law.
And that's the other thing I was going to say. Go ahead, sir.
I just have if you don't go in the drop program in 25 years, your 3% continues.
The drop program, it depends on your
Not
age.
mandatory. So if you had 25 years, then you get 75%. If you did 26 years, you have 3 times 26. And then 3 times 27, 3 times 28. You only lose your 3% if you enter the drop and you get...
Well, the drop also goes by age.
And the board...
It's years of service and age.
Yeah, you don't have to go into the drop.
But the board doesn't dictate who goes into drop or not.
No, you can't force anybody from retirement by age. So if I want to work until I'm 75 and the district still would have me, then I can work till 75. It just means I will only be able to accrue a certain amount of pension percentage. But there's no specific time when anybody has to drop. There's only limits to how much percentage they could get possibly qualify at 3%, for example.
And I think, thank you, Chief, and I think it's important for people to understand, this board, we don't dictate who does the drop program. We don't have any say in that.
Correct.
That's correct.
Similar to FRS, the board is all in FRS. Those criteria are set by the state. So that criteria of when you can and can't go on the drop and the percentage you make and all those things are set in FRS by the state. And they're the same for high-risk employees throughout the state. And that's all determined, if you go to the state website or FRS website, it will tell you all of the qualifications, which essentially our Chapter 175 basically mirrors the state.
Right, and this leads me to the next thing, and it states in here, including a demand for elimination of the drop program. We don't dictate drop, that's all state. We have nothing to do with that. If they'd have to talk to legislatures to get something repealed. That has nothing to do with us. I think it's important that the public know that. That's not a function of this board. The other thing I wanted to ask you, sir, is it says that that this county or this district is seeking assessments to fund their largesse. Right here. That we're seeking assessments?
No, the county that was requesting assessments was North Naples. We're not looking for any.
Right, okay, I just want to clarify.
This isn't these count, these are,
And I didn't know if we were counted in that or not.
no.
Okay, because that's kind of misleading, because I wasn't sure if that was not, or not. Let's talk about this. Fire commissioners gaining, and Chief, if you can comment on this, please. Fire commissioners granting 10-week vacations to uniform members and 8 1.5-week vacations to non-uniform civilian employees adds monstrous cost to the budget.
We do not have vacation time in the district. Our policy is called personal leave, which you use for vacation or sick. We do not distinguish between sick or vacation. We had sick time years ago, around 1992, I would say it was. We got rid of that program because we felt it wasn't as efficient for the taxpayer. Instead, we moved to what we call personal leave. That time is sick, as I mentioned, and vacation. And I would say in my 25-year career, I have never seen anybody take 2 months off and use their time for vacation, because in a similar situation like myself,
Unless there was a death in the family of an
or an
immediate-
injury,
Or an injury.
most people on the district, because they know accidents happen, that you may be off for an extended period of time, so they do not use that time.
They let it accrue.
They let it accrue, so if something happens and you need to take time off, because as a firefighter, you can't, and like in my situation, I wouldn't be working for months and months possibly, if I was on the line. So I would be using all my time in conjunction with short-term disability or workers' comp, but usually short-term disability if it's off-duty. So that time is utilized conservatively for vacation, simply for a situation where a family member may get ill and they may need to take extensive time.
Do you have a system in place, a light-duty system in place, that if an officer's hurt on the line and they've used all their time, like at the sheriff's office, we also had, they would go to light duty, they do desk duty.
Yes, sir.
They'd find them something to do that needed to be done. But they also had a program in place where if they needed extra time, members of the agency could donate some of their time to them if they were in really bad shape and they needed it. And that happened quite often, believe it or not, and that helped out as well.
We do almost the exact same thing here. Most of the time when somebody has a significant injury of a family member or themselves and they burn through all their personal leave,
Right.
then they get donated time. They can ask for donations from other members of the district. However, our policy states that we are not allowed to contribute until the person has exhausted all of their sick or vacation time or personal leave. They have to exhaust all their leave before we can be donated, and that actually happens quite a bit.
Okay, good. And because we have a responsibility, of fiduciary responsibility, to protect the public, make sure we're not using public public funds for that, and that's great that that's in place. Thank
Yes,
you.
sir. And we do, just to comment on what you said, we also have the light duty program. In fact, if you want to get a firefighter back on the line quick, you put them on light duty. They don't want to work in the office.
It's just the opposite with the sheriff's office. They're like, oh, this is a cushy job, I'm staying.
You don't get too many malingering firefighters once they get in a desk job.
Thank you, Chief.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to clarify, I'm not too sure exactly what the chief said is what I believe. According to the, I think it's not a personal leave policy. We have excused time, it's called, if I'm not mistaken. And it's 21 tours. And you're telling me that it's in there, it says 15 years, 16 years on the job, you can get 21 tours off. I see no reason a man couldn't, in October, apply for the month of October and November off. That is within his 21 tours. So it doesn't have to be sick, it doesn't have to have an extraordinary reasons. The policy says you're entitled to 21 tours.
The chief
And
just
they're
said in
not
25
getting-
years that's never happened.
That's one of the problems. Shouldn't put things in there that you can, some people can use and some people can't use.
You still have to approve it.
Yes.
I don't think you can negotiate a contract and give a guy 21 tours and then tell him, if I feel like it. It's either you have a policy, either you have a contract with him or you don't. You can't have half of each. Give him 21 tours and then say, well, if I approve it. I don't buy that. I think 21 tours is way too much. And the non-uniformed staff is getting 8.5 weeks. I don't understand that at all. If you want to accept the much higher risk for being a firefighter, it could be more generous.
If I may, 21 tours is 21 days.
Tours.
21
24-hour
tours is a day off,
No,
a shift.
it's not. It's
Yes, it is. It's not-
24 hours.
It's still, it's a shift
That's a
off.
tour.
That's a tour. But it's not, you're making it sound like it's more than it is. It's 21
No,
days
I'm not
off.
making it more. You're not admitting what it is. You're making some sort of
Chief, I was on the fire department, you were in the fire department. I know exactly what I'm talking about, and you know what I'm talking about.
No, I don't.
You're exaggerating the
I
system,
don't
and it's
understand.
incorrect. To put it in writing and embarrass this department with this rhetoric, because it's not true, and you know it.
don't say that.
Yeah,
It is true.
I did 30 years.
I tell you-
I know what I'm talking about.
No, you don't.
I'm sorry, but it was 21 days off, not 21 tours, not 21 months, not 3 months, it's 21 days. The time off in between tours is theirs, not ours. We can't tell them what to do on the days off. So don't make it more than it is. You're exaggerating what's going on,
I'm not.
and I don't appreciate it.
I don't know why you would do that. First of all, you are a citizen's representative. You should at least find out what it is.
Well, as a
21
citizen's
tours
representative,
times 24 hours equals about 500 hours off. If you had a standard job and you got a week off,
Well, if,
in hours, days off.
We've had this discussion so many
40
times.
can I say one thing,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman? How many, the normal person working 40 hours a week works 2,080 hours a year. Do you know how many hours our guys work a year? Do you have any idea?
I don't know.
2,912 hours. They work 56 hours a week. They don't work 40 hours a week. So if,
That's another argument, by the way. They
But
shouldn't
then-
be working 48-hour tours, and they shouldn't be working
they don't work 48-hour
24-hour
tours.
They work 24
They work
on 48.
24-hour tours.
24-hour tours. You got 21, that's one of the, I'm not signing this budget, it's just excessive. Nobody. You talk about being a firefighter. I was a firefighter in New York City. We got 5 weeks. What do you want to call them, nights or days? We got 5 weeks. No, we got 26.
you got 26 shifts.
26.
We give 21.
No, that wasn't that. We got 5 weeks, potential 5
Well-
weeks off.
Do you have any comment, Commissioner Casella?
No, I'm finished, thank you.
Commissioner Murphy?
Just to remind everybody that 9/11 is tomorrow. We have a event going on that's very solemn. It's going to be tomorrow at the Lyles Hotel. I'll be present. I hope everyone else will be too.
That's at 6 o'clock. Yes. And I have one comment in this email that was sent out, which seemed to be short on facts and kind of long on some bad comments, but too many fire commissioners can't say no to the chiefs and no to the unions, but they can deny true representation to the taxpayer and deny their culpability for the runaway budgets. I've been here 10 years. When I got here, we had 4 stations, ran 4,000 calls with 130 employees. We now have double the stations. We now have double the calls. We now have 116 employees. And at the end of this calendar year, everything in this district is paid for, including a mortgage that we inherited here, is going to be paid off 100%. Now, I would dispute this all day long about runaway budgets and not being able to do negotiation, because I will hang my hat on it, and I'm damn proud of it.
I asked this.
Oh, and incidentally, and lowered the millage rate 2 cents this budget year on top of that.
And lowered it how many years in a row?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I've been on this board for 4 years. When I came on this board, the millage rate was 238, went to 235, went to 233, went to 231. All 4 times we've lowered, on every year we've lowered the millage rate, and we've paid off all long-term capital debt.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I'd also like to recognize and praise the chief, Lisa, and his executive staff. You've done an amazing job, because I can't say it's completely unprecedented. I don't know if any other district in the state can say the same, but I know it's extremely rare and unusual that we're in this situation. Job well done.
Well, from a personal standpoint, I feel like the board has had, generally speaking, had a very good working relationship with our administration and with frankly, our union as well. And there aren't many government agencies that can say that, and I talk to a lot of people at FASD that come to me all the time and go, how'd you do that, you know? And it's real simple. It's give and take. And never saying no to the chief was never in the cards. Never saying no to the union was never in the cards. We just found common ground. And I will put that up against anybody, anytime in a public forum.
Just for an example, I asked the board, several of these boards, to send a letter to the legislation as a representative of the people, suggestion to them that they might look at our pension program. My belief, and I thought the board might believe it, that 100% pensions and drop programs was excessive. And I couldn't get this board to write that letter even.
How many times have you walked the halls in Tallahassee? I've gone up every year since I've been here. I missed 1 year because I couldn't make it because of an illness. I've had these conversations, as well as some of my other colleagues on the board, many times. And to be accused of not having conversations about the pension and the drop program is absurd.
I just said to you, I made a motion.
There are
and
no
it was
100% pensions left in our department. Okay?
Is that true, Chief? Nobody gets 100%
I think the
pension?
maximum, I would have to double check, but I think the maximum of the tiered contract is a 3% multiplier. Is that correct?
3%? What
Yeah,
happened to
and at
3%?
25 years,
That went away on the second tier when we renegotiated with the union.
Yes,
For the
sir.
new
There's
hires.
no way for the people who were under that program?
We didn't take anything away from people that were promised a contract before we renegotiated. That was just for people that hadn't been hired yet. So we fixed that without taking anything away from the people that have been promised.
yes,
ready to move on?
you have that-
Well,
We have any old business this evening? Anybody?
I'd just like to say, mention to Chief that we didn't forget about the Memorial Park. So whenever we're ready to move on with that and help make that a reality.
That has been, we have received a bid, and that will be starting ASAP.
Okay,
Yeah, we're going to put the initial down deposit.
We
Down
actually have
payment.
that, we have that in
Yes, sir.
on our agenda this
Oh, I'm
evening to
sorry,
vote
sir.
on. Under the new business, I need a motion for the disposal of assets report.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We need a motion for budget transfer number 3.
So move.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approval of purchase orders over 10,000. In your pack here, you have the one for the office furniture design concepts. I need a motion to approve that.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And the Florida Environmental Landscape Contracting contract or bid. I need a motion.
So moved.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next item is the reappointment of trustee Sandra Gibbons to the Firefighters Retirement System Pension Board. We need a motion for that reappointment.
So move.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next item, the chief is going to fill us in on the EMS facilities rental agreement with Lee County. Chief?
Yes, gentlemen, this is basically a broad overview. I wanted to just advise the board that we are in negotiations with Lee County EMS, or Lee County, with our rental agreement here. As you know, about 5 years ago, we entered into a handshake agreement with Lee County to provide 3 stations for 3 of their units for the approximate cost of $115,000 a year. Since then, according to Lee County, that a handshake agreement is only good for 5 years, and we must enter into an official agreement. Now, the initial proposal came from Lee County to be approximately $80,000 a year, which is a decrease of, $25,000 per year in the annual, we just call it CAM rental fee here in Bonita Springs. They had come out and measured some of our stations and provided a square footage analysis of their usage of our district. Also, they presented us with some comps for the local area. Myself and the assistant chief went through them. At this time, we did not enter into any agreement, or I have nothing to present to the board. However, we are in negotiations, and I was looking for some further clarification from Lee County on what would justify the reduction of $25,000 in annual rentals here in Bonita Springs.
What's the time frame on your negotiation? How much time do you have to wrap
We
this
have a
up?
couple months. I think it was January, right? Yes, January. The chief of EMS would like to be able to present the county with something. However, that was our first meeting for the negotiations, so I just wanted to inform the board.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, the actual amount is $35,000 per year,
Yes,
a reduction from 115 down to 80.
yes, you're correct.
Yes, and over 5 years, that's 175,000, and they haven't given us any reason for that, have they?
A reason for,
Reducing it $175,000.
no, sir.
That's money right out of our pocket here, and I think there has to at least be some explanation as to why.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
My understanding is they took some comps, but I'm not sure where they would get comps spread out across the district like they are versus having one location where they'd have to run everything out of, number one. Number two, they have a pretty solid revenue stream out of Bonita Springs, of which we get 0. So from where I sit, and I don't know how the rest of the board feels, that I see no reduction in their rent in any way, shape, or form, and I don't even know if we should even maybe go higher after 5 years, but I don't see any reduction in the future. Just, I don't know how the rest of the board feels.
Yeah, I agree.
Chief, is there any standard in the other districts? We have EMS units in other districts.
There is a standard. They're trying to utilize the same process for our district as they do the other districts. However, I do understand, speaking with some other districts, that they have not come to any agreement, not only on a cost, but on the methodology that they're using to evaluate the price for rent.
Yeah.
That was one of the questions that I have been asking. I do know that the price per square footage that they offered us was higher than some of the other districts. Basically conceding the fact that here in Bonita Springs, the real estate market is higher than in other areas. And myself and the assistant chief also looked into commercial property, like what we're paying for commercial property over near Station 3, and it was a little higher than what they proposed. So hope that answered the question.
You know, to answer the question, my opinion, my place in this situation is that there should be close to a uniform rate based on EMS and all 17 fire districts. I don't think we should be competing with EMS to see how much money we can take from them. And we don't want to give away the store either. So I think Fire Chiefs Association or this group ought to try to come up with find some way to come up with standard. They all pay the same. I honestly think that's what it should be.
We could make the rent go away if they gave us our COPCN.
Chairman, if I may, I agree with you, Commissioner Murphy, and I agree with you, Chairman. I genuinely do. And I know that this board has worked hard, as well as the chief and his administrators, to foster a better relationship with EMS, because it's been a rocky road. I've been around Bonita a long time. I haven't been involved with the board, but I know it was tough, and at one point in time we were in litigation. None of us wanted to come back to that. I certainly don't want to lose money, take a big hit. That's money out of our pocket. You're 100% right. But I think we should, right now, Chief's going to continue to negotiate. I know you have a good rapport with the head of EMS, and we're not going in there with our chest puffed out and demanding. I think if you talk with them, with the relationship that you have with them, I definitely don't want us to see us take a hit for that kind of money. And then, like the chairman said about the comps, I don't know where they got their comps. I haven't seen them, but I also heard that they weren't germane to what we're looking at and where we're at. So, and the price of real estate right now in Bonita is outrageous. So if they were to get their own property or whatever, it'd be a whole different story.
Mr. Chairman,
Thank you. Commissioner Murphy.
this was before my time when we set the 115,000, but obviously it was a negotiation. It was a number that probably they chose, and they came back to us and made the offer, or we put it out there and they took the offer. It was reasonable at the time. How could it be less reasonable 5 years later? There's got to be some formula we used then that we can reapply.
Well, Commissioner Machuro was spot on when there was not real good blood between us and them. So at that point, when we decided to start charging them rent, we charged them zero rent for how many years? I mean, more years.
25 years.
25 years. They paid nothing. We had $60,000 a year invested in drugs that we never got reimbursed for. They were pulling $1 million plus, or between $800,000 and $1.5 million, depending on how many years you look back, out of Bonita. And when we decided that we weren't going to fund them as well as us, they decided that they didn't need us, and they moved into motels. They were staying at some of the local motels. Terrible public relation in the community. Anyway, it was let's see who's going to blink first at that time. I can't say it was one of my proudest moments, but it was one of the moments that you just have to draw a line in the sand and figure out how we're going to come back to the table. At that time, we were trying to get our own transport, and we were in litigation over that. It was an ugly time. I think we've come a long way since then, and they've lived up to their end of the agreement. We seem to have better response times than we used to. Still not perfect, but we ended up in a better place than where we were when we started the fight. So the number, as I recall, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but the number that we came up with for rent was what they had agreed to pay for hotel rooms.
Yes, sir.
And now you're not having motels with charging cords running out to an ambulance in the parking lot, having sirens rolling out of a local hotel in the middle of the night. It was a bad situation, so I think if I remember correctly, that number was negotiated because if they were going to be spread around the city, they'd have to be in different hotels. And as it was, they were kind of in a cluster anyway. They weren't spread out like they are now with our stations. It would not serve the residents of this city in any way, shape, or form to change that. Having said that, we've got, we're building these facilities. We're paying for them. We're paying for the electric. We're paying for the water. We're paying for sewer. We have fuel. We have everything that's readily available as they need it. I think I think what we're charging them is not an unreasonable amount of money. And at the end of the day, it shouldn't even be about money as much as it is response times and location. But that's how we came up, to answer Commissioner Murphy's question, we came up with that dollar amount. We took what they were paying for hotel rooms, and we multiplied it out. We divided it by the month, and then we came up with, and that's where that annual figure ended up coming from.
Chief, you quote the two prices, what the present rate we're charging and the rate that you're looking for a reduction. Then I need to know, what are the other districts paying? What are they paying towards the other districts? And that is, if you want to talk about, that's the comps, the only comp that I see that makes any sense.
You can rent space out of Bay Shore way cheaper than you can in Benitez. So you have to go by what your.
I want the chief to tell me, you quoted the two prices.
That is true. I
And
don't
you're
have,
negotiating, you're telling me you've been out negotiating. Well, then tell me the prices that the other people are paying, so I have some idea if we eventually come to a vote, what the,
How would the chief know what EMS is charging the other? Did you discuss that with them?
I just did discuss
He said
that
he
with the
negotiated.
chief of EMS, and also I discussed that with another fire chief in the district of a like-in-kind area. And, it's all particular, like politics is local, so is the real estate market, and their other chiefs have different ideas of what they want to see in the contract. I will tell you that Bonita Springs, from the proposal that EMS gave us, is the highest in all the districts right now, from the proposal that they gave us. So, in comparison with the other districts, I would say Bonita Springs is, from their proposal, is charging more per square foot. I believe the number was, I don't remember what the number was. I don't even want to quote it if I don't have the information.
The collection rate here too, though, is a lot higher than a lot of the other districts too. So
Yeah.
I think that comes into the equation.
And, one thing, just to Commissioner Fitzgerald's point, I did mention per facility instead of square footage, because
Yeah.
without getting too much into it, we have two stations that are exactly identical that they run their ambulance out, but they came back with two different prices.
Yeah.
So that was some of the questions that
Well,
we.
you got some work to do.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I don't think we made it any easier.
That would be the short answer if I would have told you.
I don't
We've got
think
some
we
work
made
to
it any
do.
easier for you either.
I think there's a fairness involved. EMS is not the enemy. We're two government
I totally
agencies
agree.
providing service. We should be able to come up with a reasonable number, and if we're overcharging, we ought to reduce it. If we're undercharging, we ought to increase it. That's-
Okay.
That's basically how I feel.
Next item is Chief's report. Chief Daigle?
The only thing that I have is we need to set a final budget date,
Oh,
final budget hearing
I
date.
forgot to do that I had a note there on the side. We had set it for September 25th it has to be after 5 o'clock. We'll do September 25th at 5:01 if there's no objection. Has to either be the 25th or the 26th.
Both days could be wrong for me.
Can he call in for that?
I do not know.
No, I think I have to be here for that.
September 25th and 26th.
Or 26th? What date can you be here?
Well, I may have a hearing, a court hearing, that I may have to attend on the 26th of September in Connecticut. So I wouldn't be able to be here for either date unless I get a continuance.
Would you be here could we do it the 24th, or is that too early?
Look at the calendar.
That's a Monday.
It's a Monday. I could do it 24th.
Is that
24th?
acceptable?
The 24th will work.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Absolutely. So we'll change that to the 24th at 5:01. I need a motion for that.
I make a motion to have it the 24th at 5:01 PM.
I'll second it. What day is that, Chairman?
It's a Monday.
It's Monday. Thank-
All in favor?
Aye.
Chief?
The only other issue that I have is we may need to move the June 10th, 2019 board meeting, may need to be moved to June 3rd, 2019. That's just an FYI. We don't have to come out with a schedule until the beginning of the year, at which time we will place on the website. And that's
Correct.
because of FASD, as the chairman
Right.
so pointed out.
Yep.
And other than that, I have nothing.
Thank you, Chief. Assistant Chief DeWitt? I have nothing, sir. Deputy Chief Scott? You have nothing? Okay. And we have Deputy Chief Madden's report. Any public comment?
Do we have something in public education?
That's just for FYI.
Okay.
Yes, Alex Grandy, 11851 East Terry Street. Now, correct me if I'm wrong here, but let's say if you were hired before June 1st, 2010, okay, you would be under the 3.58% multiplier, right?
This isn't question and answer. You can come in and ask the staff
Okay, I'm
that.
sorry.
This is public input.
According to the auditor's report, Ashley Brown, okay, 3.58% multiplier at 30 years is 107.40%. If you take the average of the best 5 years, you would get close to 100% of the salary when you're going out the door if you were hired before June the 1st, 2010. After June the 1st, 2010, it goes to 3%. Okay, so then the multiplier is 3% after June the 1st, 2010. So that's where the confusion lies. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I need a clarification on that, please. Commissioner Lohan stated, and I think he's correct, but I need a clarification. If you have 25 years in the job, and let's say you're in the 3.58 multiplier rate, you go into drop. There is no further increments in your pension. You don't go to 3.58 times 26, 27, 28,
That's correct.
29.
Correct.
That's correct.
So that
Again,
is,
that's-
that is a, I've had that confusion because we say 30 years at 3.58. If you're in the drop program, you're not getting 3.58 times 30, you're getting 3.58 times 25. There is no further increase in your pension once you enter the drop.
That is correct.
Correct.
Mr. Chairman, point of order. I thought this was public comment.
It is. Mr. Pure?
Well, the public appreciates it when the commissioners engage in a conversation, particularly when there's no agendas out there for a member of the public to pick up on. Ron Pure, TAG. Make it clear, too, that the publisher is always available, the publisher of Tagster, to Q&A back and forth, if there are any questions. A few things that were left off the table, I think, tonight on this drop matter. First of all, I asked administration here at the district how many people were participating in drop. I was told 2, but someone at the state who oversees the program had sent me an email and said there were 7. I think it was as of June of this year. 7 employees on the, in the drop program. You had suggested that we don't pay anything additional when people are in the drop program, or someone here did. In fact, the state, if it's not us, pays 11.5% per year of that person who is participating in the drop program. So at the end of 5 years, and I'm guessing it's compounded, has a tiny little nest egg, in addition to the ability to work for an additional 5 years while collecting a pension with their salary. You also said that there's no oversight. You folks can't do anything about it. I'm not so sure about that, because by nature of the drop program's standing for deferred optional retirement program or plan, you may be able to, if you want to venture into a little bit of a challenge, which would be unlike you folks to do with the union, say that no member of the employee base of the district shall participate in the drop program. You retire at your own plan's engagement, then that's the end of the
Mr. Chairman, can I
story.
please respond to this after this? Okay.
Afterwards, you can. Who's eligible? Now, we've looked hard at the teachers in Lee County and Collier County in recent months because of the sales taxes that are on the table in both of our counties around here. And we have found that there are more people than just those that are in the higher echelon of the employee base. I mean, there are secretaries, administrators, people that are in janitors, et cetera, that can participate and do participate in the drop plan at the county level. Is that the case here? Are there employees that participate or can't participate other than the firefighters and first responders? If someone would answer that question tonight, it would solve that, put it behind us. So there are many things that are that a lot of people aren't too familiar with, but it is an added burden, and nearly 12% is an extraordinary burden on the taxpayers at large, perhaps not from the city or the district, but from the taxpayer base that we contribute or that the state puts up annually to pay off something like the drop program and our share of the regular FRS pension program. So that's those are a few of the points. And again, you know, when you don't have an agenda at the door and you guys are not particularly interested in engaging in a conversation, it doesn't have to be an argument, in front of the public, I question those things. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thanks for coming.